is here. The way to break free with your host, Angela Pedigo, will light a flame within you. Host Angela Pedigo is an author, speaker, and certified life recovery, grief, and joy restoration coach. Angela uses her own life experiences to help you navigate and guide you to success. She also has developed tools that incorporate her faith and her drive to overcome any obstacle in life. So please welcome the host of The Way to Break Free, Angela Pedigo.
Welcome, everybody, to The Way to Break Free. I'm your host, Angie Pedigo. I'm so glad you could join us today. I cannot wait to have this conversation with my guest here, Erik Hernandez. Erik he's just a joy to be around. And to hear his journey through this is just going to be really exciting because it's going to pull in a lot of different elements today. I think there's going to be something for everybody. And the things that maybe as we go down this journey that you'll be able to pick up and take away with you. So I'm glad that you guys are tuning in. Share it with everybody that you think will benefit. Erik, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Appreciate you taking the time to come out. So
have to.
I'll never forget when I first had a conversation with you. And Erik is a journalist, and he's also a photographer. Takes amazing pictures. Amazing.
Well, thank you.
You do. Like, you put so much effort into that. I know you have to see the world through beauty because it shows in your photos and in your writing. And when you had called me, I guess it was about a year or so ago, or no, so it was a little over a year ago, to do an article for the paper for a nonprofit. We just had the best conversation.
Yeah.
You know, somehow we got into your journey and we were sharing, and I was like, man, this dude's got it going on. And so here we are.
I was putting on the front, I guess.
No.
I had you fooled. I don't have it going on.
No, I was so intrigued, and our paths just kept crossing. And so it came out and did some photos not too long ago. And so I was like, man, you got to be on the show. So Erik has overcome a lot of depression that went back way into childhood. And so I'm going to let him start today, and we're going to take it from there. Erik, when do you recall, and you may not have known as a child, I don't think kids know that they're feeling depressed when they're depressed necessarily, because you can't really put words to it.
Or you don't know what it is. You just know you have this feeling of, I don't know, for me, it was, I felt like I didn't belong anywhere. I didn't fit in with any crowd. It was hard making friends. You know, I felt alone.
Yeah.
That's what I remember as a young child, is I just felt alone. Like we were talking earlier, family life was just not like, it wasn't typical of what I was used to seeing with other friends. You know, it wasn't like that at my house. You know, just felt alone everywhere I went.
And of course, we grew up in a different generation, where families looked a lot different than they.
And, you know, without internet and we didn't have cable TV. A lot of people didn't back then. This was the 70s. So most families were together and did things together. We didn't. So I spent my time drawing or reading. I loved to read when I was a kid. Dreaming about what life might be like later. But as far as spending it with friends, you know, I guess being depressed, it kind of showed to other kids, and that, being an adult now looking back, kids kind of pick up on that. And so you become kind of strange acting to them. So they don't know how to act. You don't know how to interact with them. So I think that's what it was that set me apart and kind of I shunned myself, I guess. I don't know.
That's a valuable tool right there, just for parents to teach and encourage their kids.
Yes.
Like if you see that kid sitting alone, or you see that kid sitting by themselves, you know, to be able to just go say hi or smile at them, or how are you, or what would that have done for you?
I can only speculate, but I'm imagining that it would have made me smile outside and inside, you know, just that somebody took time just to say hi. And there were people straggled along in my past that did. But, you know, in my everyday life, trying to fit in, I never found that for a long time. But for parents or for an adult to come up to a child and show some attention, especially if you see one that's alone a lot, that would help. That would help. And if you see them regularly, do it regularly. Just let them know they exist. Acknowledge their existence.
Yeah, that's big. So how did that carry over into adulthood? I'm sure that that was hard dealing with that in school. Did that kind of keep lingering with you after school?
It did. I was socially awkward. I still am to a point. It's something that once it's ingrained in you, it's hard to shake. And I'm working on that every day. Here I am doing this, so I'm working on it every day. Believe me. It falls into every aspect of your life. Job, social events. I've never been one for that in my adult life. I feel uncomfortable a lot still.
You don't show it though, man.
Well, I think that what I do now kind of helps with that. Because you have to do it. So, but
do you think it's good? I want to zone in on that for just a second. You said you have to do it. What you do now, you have to do it. Do you think it's good for people to push themselves in out of their comfort zones when they're depressed?
It's very important to get out of your comfort zone, because your comfort zone becomes not a comfort zone, but a prison. And,
you think you're comfortable, but
you're comfortable because you're not pushing yourself. You don't have to do all that because you're just staying where you're staying. And I interviewed a guy who has cerebral palsy recently, and he said that he wouldn't change that because that forced him to do more. And I found that powerful. You wouldn't go back. He said, if you're given 3 wishes, he goes, that wouldn't be one to have it taken away, because he felt that God made him like that for a reason. He's a very successful person now.
Yeah.
So you got to push yourself.
Yeah. What motivates you when you kind of want to stay in that comfort zone or hidden or?
I still do that. Yeah, I still find myself. The motivation is easier because I feel that God wants you to do that. God wants you to push yourself. God pushed. Look at Jesus. He was pushing it every time, every day.
Wasn't he though?
Yeah. I mean, look at what he did, and think about Job.
Yes.
Job could do what he did, but why can't I just go and do my job? Or normal things in life.
Yes. When we think about all Job lost, who had every reason in the world
to give up
and be depressed, and yet he still an overcomer. Like he just got to face the day and
praised God the whole time.
Praised the whole time. That's powerful.
It is.
So early days, I'm guessing it probably took a little while to get to the point that you could do that. But
yeah, I did.
What was it like dealing with it? Like say in your 20s
to push
30s,
myself.
Well, or just like dealing with depression.
Oh, it's bad because in my 20s, I don't remember a lot of my 20s and probably most of my 30s. I really don't. And that's sad because that's when I began covering it up with other things, alcohol and drugs. So that kept me from pushing anything. The only thing I pushed was searching for that stuff to hide it. That's all I was doing.
And that's one of the things that I don't think that people who understand depression or addiction necessarily understand that they see that most of the time addictions are just their ways of trying to cope with something that's underlying.
You're covering it up. It's like you got a hole in your floor, just throw a rug over it or something, It's still there. The problem's still there. You lift that rug up and there it is. So, and you don't realize that.
Do the substances, what would that do for you? Would it either make you feel numb in the pain, numb in the depression, or like give you, some sense of comfort in some way?
In the beginning, it was, you would get that euphoria. In the very beginning, it was a way of just not feeling bad, but feeling good for a while. And then it becomes, before you know it, you don't even realize it. It's another form of that same prison, that box. a comfort zone, and it becomes a prison. Like, I would imagine it's worse than being in prison, because you're out in life, but you're not living. You're just existing, covering it up with things that are hurting you and the people around you. And you don't realize that. And I don't remember ever once realizing how bad I was hurting other people.
Do you think, did the battle shift from like you're fighting your addiction more than fighting the depression at any point? Like,
the depression was there, but the drugs and all covered that up. I think they mixed together, so it was just a bigger thing to battle. Was it became something else. The drugs and the depression formed something that is indescribable. Really, it's dark, it's lonely, and it's there were times where I would wish that I was just dead.
Yeah.
I hate saying that now because I'm happy, but there were those times.
Part of your journey,
and I think a lot of people deal with it.
Yeah, they do, and they suffer in silence a lot. Did you do that? I mean,
oh yeah, I'm sure people knew, but people around you get tired of it, and you don't realize that. You think they're turning their backs on you. They're not. They can't help you. They try to help you, and they can't. They try to talk to you, and you don't listen. So what can they do? But they have to take care of themselves.
Not so much that this is one of the things about depression and addiction. Sometimes it's not so much that you're purposely not listening. It's like your brain is just in a place at that point where you can't receive, receive information.
You hear it, hear it, but it's aggravating. You don't want to hear it. You don't want to listen, and you don't. Most people don't. My grandmother, who we spoke about, was persistent in praying for me all the time.
I would love to have met your grandmother after everything you've told me about her.
She was amazing. I never heard her. If there was anybody that I've ever known that was kind of like Job, it was her. She would praise God when she hurt. She would get up and, oh, my back, praise God, I'm alive. She would, you know. And I never thought about that back then, but looking back, it's like, man, how amazing is that to praise God when you're hurting?
You know, it sounds an awful lot like what you do now. Like, I mean, I think you're talking about pushing yourself even when you don't feel like it.
I do, but my motivation is my wife and my kids, all of my kids. I have a few friends who, I don't want to let down. But yeah, God, I owe it all to God. God is the reason I'm here. God's the reason I'm here right here today. God's the reason for it all.
Yes.
And I would encourage anyone who's feeling down to just give it a chance, give it a go.
Yes. So tell me about some of the low points in that, like where you found yourself knowing I need help.
In my adult life.
Yeah.
I remember I was dating this girl who was really, really she was depressed and dealing with drugs. And I remember feeling like, maybe because I was just drinking, I think then. I was in one of those spots where I'd say just drinking, but it was a spot where I wasn't doing drugs. I thought maybe I can help her because I did like her, I as a friend first. And then she introduced me into heroin and to needles. And I remember doing that. And it wasn't long after that I was homeless. Not blaming this on her.
No, totally.
Not, but I wasn't long after that I was homeless. I lost my job, and that was probably the loneliest in my adult life I'd ever felt. I didn't have anything or anybody. She and I were on and off, and gosh, that was probably the lowest.
Yeah.
I don't think about those times anymore, but thinking right now about it, it's just a very dark feeling.
Yeah. And it can happen so quick.
It happened quick.
Yeah.
I'm talking 6 months. I went from having a good job, a home, family, to that family was on the back burner, and I was dating this girl. I'm telling you, I did all kinds of bad stuff, and I hate it. I hate visiting it, but sometimes you need to.
Yeah.
And within 6 months, I didn't have anything. Nobody around me, not the family, not the girlfriend.
And you were living in Indiana at that point, right?
No, at this point I was here. That was right before I moved to Indiana.
Okay.
That's when I decided I needed a change. So I moved there thinking that I would get my family back if I just straighten up. But it was too late, There is a point where it's too late. Not too late for God, not too late for you, but there's too late for other people. They just had enough.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. It's easy for us to think in those moments that people are just enduring everything and they're enduring it with us. But sometimes, like you said, it's never too late for God, but sometimes it might be too late for other people. It is,
yeah. I've lost and hurt so many people, and I hate it. And it's because it was too late for them. They were just done. You can't. I mean, I don't blame them. Now that I'm on this side of it, and I see certain people dealing with things, and you want to help them, but if they got to help themselves. You have to accept God. You have to accept that you did wrong. You have to make your peace with it and move on.
So I liked something else you had said, and we had talked about this before the show, but it was about, moving. And moving away, one of the things that we have to work on in recovery is sometimes we have to change our people, places, and things because familiar is too easy for the same familiar habits to stay around. Was that hard for you moving away?
No, at the time it wasn't, because I was done with that. I didn't want to do it anymore. I thought my then girlfriend, we'd been together 9 years, I think. So I thought she was coming once I moved and got a job, but I didn't know that she was done. That was just her way of agreeing to things so she could move on. And that's when another dark time started. Ooh. So,
Well, we will hit that. We're going to take a quick break and we'll pick right up with there when we come back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. Rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies. Find settings that allow them to be the most productive and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
We're back from the break, and Erik, we are on this journey with you. We're packing up, moving to Indiana, gonna make a new start. What was that like?
I remember the drive up was positive. I felt positive. Everything, wasn't aware that God was like, "Oh, buddy, this ain't happening just yet." But I remember going up there. I was positive that things were going to change. I got up there, found a job the second day I was up there. And stayed with my mom. I was 32. And I remember Mom was 2 years younger than I am right now. She was 50. She just turned 50 that year. And things were good. And then I found out my girlfriend, that part of her plan was to stay here and not come up. So I stayed working. I remember feeling down, really depressed about it. But I stayed working. I worked for a place called General Cable and drove a forklift. And I hate to say this, but my mom, she hadn't settled down really at the time. She's like, hey, let's go have a beer and shoot some pool. So I did, and we ended up staying out all day having beers and shooting pool. And that was just the beginning of it again, because I hadn't drank or done anything in a while. I'd given it up. And man, that just started it. I lost my job probably 3 weeks later because I went to work drunk and hit a pole inside the building with the forklift.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was another thing. And it just started, the progressed into more and more. Met my wife in a bar. Sorry. we were both, she was younger. She was 26. I was 32. Is that right? Yeah. And so, she was still young enough, and, her life is another journey. But I think God put us together. I know God put us together. There's so many coincidences that can't be, because meeting her, we weren't either one ready to give up the wildlife, but we stayed together through all of this. And let's see, that was 2004. So for 6 years, it was a crazy time.
Yeah.
But we were together. We stayed together. Can't really tell you too much about it because I don't remember a lot of that. I really don't.
Yeah.
That was another crazy time. Covering up hurt with something else,
Yeah.
And I did get a job working for O'Reilly, and I transferred down. We decided, because I would tell her about home, and how it was a lot slower here than it was there.
Yeah.
And, a lot easier going. So she was like, one day, why don't we move back? And it was her idea. Why don't we move there?
Wow.
And I was like, all right, I'll put in for a transfer. And probably a month and a half later, 6, 8 weeks, we were on our way here.
Nice.
Like the Beverly Hillbillies, our mattress was on our minivan. I'm not kidding. Our mattress was on our minivan. We came down. And, I came here first and stayed with my brother and got some money saved up in the place. I went back and got her. And things were good, life had changed here too. Lafayette had changed a lot here. And but I worked in Portland for a while. She stayed home with the girls. They were both in diapers still, which is crazy because now one's gone out of school and the other one's a senior this year.
Wow.
But, so I did get back into drinking when I came here. We had some problems, and I went back to that same comfort zone.
Go back to what we know, don't we?
And what, I don't know why I would do that, but I did. And it was just another bunch, or doing the same thing with other people, and she had enough of it. This Heather she's unlike anybody I'd ever been with. Heather is 5'6". But boy, she is a firecracker. She wouldn't put up with my mess. She wouldn't put up with it at all. No, I mean, she wouldn't. She was raised in South Chicago, so she came from somewhere where they had to fight every day to live, literally. So,
I get this vision of you with when you say we're like the Beverly Hillbillies,
I'm not kidding.
Her chasing you around the house with a frying pan.
Well, I'm glad we didn't have an iron skillet because she would have used it. She's not afraid to. And I probably deserved it several times. It was her that is the reason that I ended up going back to church, which is crazy because church to her was not an option, for a long time.
Wow.
And God just works in mysterious ways. He leads us through all this. I don't think I would have this outlook on life now had I not went through all that.
Yeah.
I hate that I went through it because of who I brought along with me and who I put through it. But I'm hoping that those people out there are doing well.
So she started going to church before you did.
She had a friend that she'd been friends with for a few years, and she invited her to church. And I remember us talking, and I was like, "You're going to church, you know?" And she's like, "Yeah." I don't know if we've ever talked about what really, or if she knows what really made her go. But she went and she liked it, which surprised me because you just have to know Heather before. I call her white chocolate because she was from the hood, and she liked it. And she wanted to do some outreach with them and help kids, give out backpacks and things. It was about this time, 3 or 4 years ago when she went, 3 years ago. And so she was working with the church, giving out things, and she loved it. She would come home with a good feeling. And, I was seeing something in Heather I'd never seen before. And God was working, And
was that inspiring you?
At first, it just made me smile. I don't know if I was inspired. I wouldn't say inspired yet. But I was seeing her smile in a way that was different. You just see somebody, when God starts working in somebody's life, you can see it. You notice something's different. Mm-hmm. And I did. So I was going on like I was telling you, I went to Memphis to do a photo shoot for a band. And I told her, if you're still going to church when I get back, I'll go. Thinking she won't be going and I won't have to go. I came back. She was going to church that Sunday. She said, "You going?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll go." And I didn't want to. I just didn't want to. I don't know what it was. The enemy, the devil, whatever you want to call it, was trying to keep me down. I went, and it was the best day of my life. Probably the best day in my entire life is when I went back and started up my relationship with Jesus again.
Now, you said that your grandmother used to take you to church all the time when you were a kid.
She did. And I hated it. I didn't hate it when I was little.
Yeah.
I was one of those kids that would crawl under the benches and get the half stick of gum out of her purse, and just, I wasn't paying attention to church. I was it was a place to go, and she would grab me, she'd go, don't do that. But yeah, she took me to church. If I was with grandma, I was going to church. And she was like that with all the cousins. I come from a big family. And church wasn't an option. Not going to church was not an option. You were going to church.
So you knew about God.
Yeah, I had found God. I knew about God.
How long have you been away from God?
Until I went
then
back.
Until when you went back with Heather?
Oh, gosh. 25, 30 years.
Wow.
Probably 30 years. Yeah.
So you go back for the first time, best day of your life.
It was.
Was that overwhelming?
It was an overwhelmingly
good,
happy feeling. Yeah. I mean, I remember, I don't remember all. It was just very, very happy feeling. People were good and nice to me, and there was no, I felt bad. I've got tattoos, as you can see, and I think that kept me from going to church a few times.
Yeah.
Where I thought I'll go, but then they're just going to think I'm some, I don't know, outcast or whatever. But aren't we all?
Were you so? And a lot of people won't go to church.
Yeah.
It's not that they don't want to, but they're afraid of the judgment they might feel.
Yeah, there was times I wanted to, but that's what it was. I was afraid of judgment.
So was it like that at all when you went there?
Not at all. No.
How did they welcome you?
They welcomed me just like I would watch, just like they greeted everybody else that had been going there for years. They treated me just like I belonged, and I felt like I belonged. And it was the best feeling. And like I was telling you, so I started going. I went a couple times in a row, and then I was like, I'll start going. I couldn't wait. I'd be like 3 days to church, 2 more days we're going. And she would smile, and we would go to church, and we would start having Bible study. I think it was every second Sunday. We would go to the pastor's house and have what was called study group. Nice. And so the fellowship, it was good to feel like I belonged somewhere. It was good to be talking to God again. and to hear, not physically hear, but to hear and see his responses, and how my life just really got better really quick.
Yeah.
In all aspects.
Did you ever realize you were missing him, that he was a missing piece of your life until you went that day?
There were times I did, but for the most part, I just forgot about it, got it all together, as far as just didn't think about it, I lost touch with it.
I think sometimes we can get so far away from God in trying to deal with life, especially things like depression or addictions, that we forget he's there.
Yeah.
We forget he's there to help us get out of those places, but he goes where he gets invited.
Right.
Or we tap him in. We go seeking him.
He'll knock at your door, and if you don't, you got to open the door.
Yeah.
And once you accept God and I'm not talking about being saved. I'm not talking about baptism. I'm just saying, once you just acknowledge him and he lets you in, things will start changing.
Oh, we're going to pick up there when we come back from the break.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back from the break. We were just about to get into when it gets good with God. Tell me about that. So you said, it's more than about being saved. It was more than about just baptism. What was that like for you?
Yeah, and I'm not, that all is part of it. But
Yes.
just to open the door and let him in, that is the best feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Not that, it all is, but that's when you realize what you've been missing.
Yes, because we get saved and we get baptized, and that's like our new birth.
Right.
But when you open that door to keep growing,
Mm-hmm.
that's starting to form a relationship.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And so I remember, I don't know, I went a couple times to church, and I came home and started a conversation one night with God, and just felt good in my heart.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I'd ever felt that before, like I was being heard.
Ooh.
And when you feel like it's working or you're being heard, it just encourages you to do more. It did me. And I don't want any of that old stuff anymore. I don't have a craving for anything. I haven't in years, but I just don't want any of it. I don't even look back anymore.
He will break those chains.
He will. And you'd hear that stuff growing up, and I did. You're breaking the chains, but that is exactly how it feels.
Yeah.
You're not tied to nothing anymore. It's a new life.
Yes. And we can learn all the coping skills in the world, and to try to cope with depression and to try to cope with how to stay clean and, you know, and they're good. Those things are good because you sometimes need those in the moment. But when you truly are free, when you live sober minded and free, that's when them chains have fallen off. Otherwise, you're still dragging them, but you're trying to not let them affect you.
And they're heavy. You know, they get heavier as you go on to the point where it's almost impossible.
Yeah.
You really, and that, you know, I've lost a lot of friends along the way and people I knew who didn't make it. And it's sad, but I don't want that for anybody else, you know. So, you know, hopefully somebody out there is listening.
I hope so too. I want to share, I would love for you to share with them, because you were talking about, you know, friends who didn't make it and people coming in and out of your life. Tell me about when you were working in Nashville.
We were a subcontract group for the Corps of Engineers, Percy Priest Lake. And we took care of the parks and the different boat ramps and different things like that, maintained them and mowed and trash and all that. So it was like 2015, maybe 2016. I was working, and I'd probably been there a year. And there's a lot of wooded areas, and I started noticing people living in those wooded areas. You know, would talk to them and think, "Gosh, you know, my life's as bad as I felt it had been. It's not. I'm not living in woods. You know, I'm not eating. They were eating the fish out of that lake, and not saying that that's bad. They were living, but it can be a lot worse than you can lose it all." And you're talking about the time that I met the guy. So there was a man I noticed, and I would see him often, and he would speak to me. You know, one day I was close to him picking up some trash, and he said, "Hey, can I talk to you a minute?" And I'd notice sometimes he'd be out there playing his guitar, and I like music, so I would listen. He could really play. And he said, "I don't want nothing from you." And he goes, "But can I just pray with you?" And I remember thinking, wow, you know, he doesn't want anything from me. He wants to give me something.
Wow.
And I was like, of course. He pulled out his Bible and was reading Ecclesiastes. Like I said, the bird song, for every season, turn, turn, turn. And he was reading about that. And he said, there's always a purpose for everybody under heaven, you know, and everything. And then when he prayed, and that stuck with me, even though, you know, I still wasn't ready to give in. That still sticks with me. And I still think about that day. And I've never told my wife about that. Actually, this is the first time I've ever told anybody about that. It was today. And I don't know why. I just kept that to myself. Just it was a good thing. And I wish I could find him out there and just, you know, let him know that it helped.
You never know where you're going to find God, but you know how people have stories where they're like, I'm not sure, I just didn't encounter an angel, you know, or somebody speaking to you.
And you never know about that, because I think I saw him a few times later, and then he was just gone. There was no sign of it. There was no his tent. There was nothing. He was just gone. And I was there for years and never saw him again. He could have been just traveling, or he could have been an angel, you know. In my mind, he was an angel. He was an angel, whether he was a physical angel or whatever. I don't, you know, he was an angel. God worked through him that day. So.
How humbling was that?
Can you just imagine somebody that has nothing, and instead of him asking, hey, you got $1 or you got something to eat, he wanted to give me something. He wanted to pray with me, let me know that God was still God and still loved me. It's from somebody who was living in a tent in the woods on government property, eating whatever he could find, drinking whatever he had. It's probably the most humbling thing I've ever experienced. You know,
did you feel seen in that moment and heard by God? I mean, did you?
Yeah, I felt God's presence, definitely. You know, what else could it be?
Yeah.
Why would a guy in the middle of summer living in the woods, mosquitoes and bugs and everything, and the only thing he wanted to do was pray for me, smile. He always had a smile, never a bad thing. So if somebody in that state and that living in those conditions can smile, why can't we? Why do we have to hold on to stuff that brings you down? I have a job. I had a a vehicle, I had a home, I had a family, and I was holding on to things holding me down. When this guy can move on, I don't know. Yeah, it makes you think.
We talked a little bit about that before the show today. Why sometimes people hold on to those things. What do you think that is?
To the bad times and all. Probably a couple of reasons. It's comfort. It's your familiar zone, and another one is you're afraid of failing again. I know that's probably, when thinking now, that's probably a big part of it. Was I didn't want to put effort into something I was just going to fail at again. So it was more comfortable to just stay in a spot than try. The fear of losing, the fear of failing.
It's so funny how much of our life is driven by expectations, unmet expectations
of your own and from other people.
Yes. Because when you expect to fail, you don't try.
Right.
So therefore, you live in a state of failing.
Right. You're not going to do anything. You're not going to move ahead in any part if you don't try. And there's that saying, God only helps those that helps themselves, and and you've got to open that door. Like I was talking about earlier, you have to let him in, because if you don't, your life's not going to change. Even if things are going good, I believe that God's there somehow. If you're going good, it's because of God. It's not because of you. It's not because of somebody else. God did this for you.
Amen to that. So, what's life been like? That when you went to church, when you made it to church with Heather, I'm sitting here and you're going through your story, and I'm like, God's planting people in His path the whole time. Your grandmother, the guy that's homeless in the woods. Now your wife, who you thought would never. She's the one leading the way, getting you back to church. Like God was sending people after you. It was 2.5 years ago when you started
roughly,
going back?
A little over 2 years ago.
So, what's life been like? What happened after that?
It's been great. I mean, there's been times. There's one time, it was about a year ago. In June, it was a year ago. I was doing an album shoot for a band in Ohio. I drove my truck up. Everything went good, and it broke down on the interstate. I was coming home. It was a Sunday morning. I left there about 6 because I was going to try to get home in time to just show up at church and surprise Heather, because I told her I wouldn't be there until that evening. So I don't know. I'm on the interstate coming home. I'd probably been on there for about 45 minutes. My truck broke down, and so we don't have a lot in the bank. We don't have. I'm thinking, man, what am I going to do? And I just talked to God, and I didn't have the old Erik would have probably busted a window and just been so depressed and just disgusted. And I wasn't. I don't know what told me to start my truck and drive on up the road, but I did. And as soon as I rounded the curve, not even a half a mile, there was an off-ramp in a Skyline Chili restaurant. And I parked in the shade. There was shade. It was hot. I parked in the shade, and the place opened about an hour later. Of course, I called Heather, and she was upset. And I made a post on Facebook, and the bass player for the band said, "Hey, I got a place you can park your truck. Heather's coming to get me. We can work it out." Never in that whole time did I was smiling. I had me some chili, and I waited for Heather to come, and everything was good. That's what God can do for you. That's what God can just take you from focusing on the bad things and just be like, it's going to be all right.
One of the things that I love when just sitting in conversation with you is you seem to be able to find gratitude all around you now.
I do. That's another part of giving back to God is just to accept the good things in life and acknowledge the good things in life and just realize that there's going to be bad times. I don't care who you are. It's how you handle those bad times. It's how, if you bring God with you for the ride, it's going to be all right. That God is my co-pilot. Yeah, He is. And sometimes He's the pilot. You just got to sit over there. I'll drive for a while. He has. It's been great.
I just love it. I can just feel the joy from you. Like I can feel that welling up, and just like it shows.
It shows. I've had bad times, and I'm telling you, for these last 2 years, we got married. We'd been together 19 years. Thank you. We got married last year, and just everything's came together. I got a job working for the paper here, as you know, and
Yes.
my photography business is picking up. Just everything is good. You
Yeah.
got to remember God, because you ain't have nothing without God. And
Yep.
like the homeless guy, he had nothing and he still remembered God. He was like Job. Is what I would remember. It was
Yes.
just like he was praising God and didn't have nothing. So
Yes. You were talking about the bondage and the chains and those things. It makes me think of that verse where it says the thief comes to kill and steal and destroy, but he came to give them life and give it abundantly.
mhm.
And like when we leave him out, it looks like the enemy's reigning in our life. It's robbing us of joy. It's robbing us
Right.
of living that life fulfilled or even getting to experience it, and weighted down. It's almost like a huge weighted blanket that you can't get out from under,
Yeah.
kind of thing. But when God comes on the scene and he rips that blanket off, then it's like
It's time to get up and get dressed and live
time to
life.
get
Yeah.
up and do the
Yeah,
thing.
that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so now you are in journalism.
Mhm.
And I have to say this. I love what you're about in journalism.
Well,
Like
thank you.
you promote such positivity. You look for overcomers
Mhm.
of whatever things that they're, people who are doing that, coming out of those shackles and chains and actually taking action,
Yeah, the paper I work for had kind of veered away from that. We have new owners and new people involved, and I brought that to them. I was like, "Can we do this?" And they're like, "Go for it." So it's been really good to have people back me on that. Of course, we're here to report the news, but they
Right.
allow me to do a lot of the human interest stories, and that's what I love. I wish I
Yes.
could just do all that. I love sharing positive stuff because that's uh, positivity. It wears off on other people. They see that and they smile, and who knows what the story will help, who will help. So,
Yes. It's so refreshing.
mhm.
And just to get those inspirational things,
Mhm.
like we don't, media in general, hasn't been full of a lot of that in the last several
Right,
years, decades even. But man, I love it. I absolutely love what you do with that.
Yeah,
And I
thank
know
you.
that people in the community love it too,
Mhm.
because, they're super inspired.
Yeah,
We talk
I've
about it
had a
all the
lot of
time.
good feedback. I hear a lot of that same
Yeah.
sentiment, so it makes me feel good that I'm doing something.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
We are on our last segment here today with Erik. About to wrap this up. I've enjoyed this so much
Yeah, I have
with
too.
you. just listening to your journey out of depression. You know, you don't get to hear a lot of those kind of stories.
Mm-hmm.
So on that note, tell me what do you enjoy most today? What
aside from just being with my family, as far as what I enjoy to do, I love my photography. You know, that's something that God put in my life. I've always liked taking pictures, but in 2018, it really became something that I was serious about. That's what I like. You know, I enjoy it.
You take some of the most amazing photos, especially like when you're doing like the album shoots and stuff, or like, I'm mesmerized.
I never saw myself. I never dreamed that I would do that. You know, I always liked music and going to concerts, and when you go to a concert, you see these photographers up front, you know, getting to a little special treatment or whatever. I never thought I'd be that guy, but yeah, it's fun. I think my favorite stuff is just when I meet people and do family shoots or single shoots, or I just love photography. So if I'm behind the camera doing something, I'm happy.
Do you always do photography for people, or do you ever do like nature scenes?
I do nature, and I've sold some pieces, which I never dreamed that
Look
could
at that.
happen, you know. Yeah, I do anything: architecture, drone photography for real estate. I've done that. Weddings. God's allowed me to do that, and He's put some other. You know, I've booked 4 weddings already, so it's something I never thought I'd do either. So yeah, I love it.
Not only did He free you of these chains, but He's put you in a purpose that you have passion for.
Yeah, I have and I think that's awesome if you can make a job. You always hear that if you do something that you love, you'll never work a day in your life. I never considered photography work. It is, but I'm happy to do it.
Yeah. That is awesome. Like, just a complete transformation.
It is.
Of your life. Yeah.
I owe it all to God.
Yeah. What do you think has been one of the biggest tools that you would take away, or that you would share with people listening today if they were battling depression, addiction, you know?
I can tell you right now, just to let go of the shame and the guilt that you feel, because you can't go back and change it. Yes. You can't. You got to let that go, because that is the biggest chain. That's the biggest chain that will hold you back, is that shame. It was for me. The shame of what you've done, where you've been, the guilt for all the things you've done wrong. You can't start over if you live in the past.
How'd you finally let go of that?
Going back to church, just with God, you know, and talking to God, building a relationship with God, and just realizing that, you know, Jesus, when He was out, He didn't hang out with the good. You know, He was hanging out with people like me, or worse than me,
That's who He came for.
If they were good enough, if He was, you know, good enough to hang out with Jesus, and you know, I was too. You are too. Everybody is. Yeah. And just let go of that and start over. Give God a chance.
I see a lot of people that struggle with that. Even when they've broke some of the chains of addiction, they broke the chains of depression. And even when they have God in their life, but that one final piece of learning to forgive yourself.
Yeah.
You know, we have to coach a lot of people with that, and
it's hard.
It is hard. And one day I was studying something in the Bible, and it was like God was saying, "Who are you to not forgive what I've already forgiven? Do you sit on a higher throne than me?"
Right.
And I was like, "Oh, that's good."
No, sir.
Not at all.
Yeah, you feel, or at least for me, and I think it's probably everybody, you feel like if you forgive yourself and move on, the people that knew you before are just going to think you're hypocritical. And it goes back to that. You just got to not worry about what people think, and just trust in God that you're doing right for yourself and everybody around you.
Yeah.
You know?
We tend to mold our behaviors based around what people think of us. Like, if people think you're this, then you must be this. So you need to make sure you don't look like you're overcoming those things, you know? Right. And it's just such a twisted mindset that the enemy gets us in, you know, just that negativity beatboxing around in there. But when you go lay that at the feet of Jesus, it's He says no more. It's done.
And it's powerful when you do that, and when you accept it and truly accept it and just truly let it go. I've not been depressed. I've not had a bad day where I just was like, heck with all this. You stay the path, and you just trust in Jesus, and it'll be all right.
It's like driving a car down the road and you decide, I'm done looking in the rearview mirror, and you just yank the rearview mirror off and sling it out the window, and you are windshield bound, moving forward.
Just look forward. You do have to. What was that in Lot, the story of Lot? If you look back, you become as a pillar of salt.
Yes.
You just got to look forward.
Yeah.
Let go.
That is so beautiful, man. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show today.
I appreciate you having me.
This has been such a joy. I've loved learning more about you, more details about your life and your story. So much inspiration to be had there. So I can't wait to see who watches and what they can take away from it too. So thank you guys for tuning in today to Bold Brave TV. You are watching The Way to Break Free, and like and subscribe so you'll be notified when we go live each Wednesday. We look forward to spending time with you next week.
This has been The Way to Break Free with your host, Angela Pedigo. The one thing Angela attributes her personal victories to is her relationship with God and her deep faith. Tune in each week and hear stories and testimonies of people in personal and professional trenches and how they overcome them with their own faith in God. The Way to Break Free has something for everyone, everywhere. Right here, Wednesdays, noon Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.